Chapter 1. Michael is killed in Afghanistan. John sat in his study, engrossed in thought, when a beep signaled the arrival of an email. Intrigued, he opened the message and read aloud. "Oh my God, I can't believe it. This can't be right. It's barely been 2 months. Just 2 months since we last talked." His gaze drifted into the distance as haunting memories enveloped him. On the radio, very softly, plays The Hollies' "He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother." Suddenly he rose from his chair and walked to the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator, grabbed a bottle of red wine, and took a long swig directly from it. Then he retrieved a wine glass from the cabinet and poured the wine into it. Glass in hand, he returned to his study, sat down, and reread the email, still shaking his head in disbelief. Another sip followed as he began searching the internet. "Come on," he muttered. "Come on. No, that's not her. No, she's too old." Frustration mounted until, at last, his eyes widened with recognition. "This might be her, but I know who all these other people are. I'll bet it's you." He reached for a pen and paper, hastily jotting down notes from the computer screen. Then he picked up the phone, his fingers poised to dial the number. Chapter 2. Annie's Daydreams. In a quiet, middle-class residential subdivision in North St. Louis, about 30 miles away, a middle-aged woman stood gazing out her window, lost in a daydream. She wore a flower-covered apron, a light blue blouse, and dark pants. Over the past few weeks, and indeed the past few months, these daydreams had become increasingly frequent. Something, or perhaps someone, lingered in her thoughts, refusing to let go no matter how hard she tried. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, snapping her out of her reverie. She shook off her thoughts and turned toward the front door, but the bell rang again. She walked into the living room to investigate. Peering through the peephole, she saw an older man in a wheelchair, accompanied by a young woman cradling an infant. They appeared to be panhandlers, a few of whom occasionally visited the neighborhood during the summer months, seeking assistance. Though panhandling was against the neighborhood rules, she had never reported anyone. Instead, she would offer a couple of dollars, feeling a sense of fulfillment afterward, knowing she had helped someone facing life's difficulties. She cautiously cracked open the door and noticed the older man in the wheelchair wearing a Vietnam veteran hat, while the young woman held a fussy infant in her arms. Her heart softened, and she opened the door wider, exclaiming, "Oh, my dad was a World War II vet. Just give me a minute, and I'll get my purse." An instrumental version of John Denver's Annie song plays softly in the background. The young woman quickly responded, No, we're not looking for a handout. Please wait. We don't need your money. We're looking for a woman named Annie Carson." Taken aback, Annie replied, "Well, that's me. Annie Carson is my maiden name. Can you please wait a moment? My phone is ringing. I'll be right back. Let me take this call." She closed the door and rushed into the kitchen to answer the phone. Adele's "Hello" plays on the radio. On the other end of the line, a man said, "Annie? Annie Carson?" Annie laughed. "Yes, that's my maiden name. Everyone is calling me by my maiden name today." She laughed again. "This is John Wilson. Do you remember me from high school?" There was a long pause as Annie looked out the kitchen window. She drifted back into a daydream, briefly lost in thought. Returning to the kitchen table, she sat down, her eyes lingering on the front door. "Yes," she said softly. "I recognize your voice. How are you, John? It's been a long time. How are you doing?" "I didn't know if you'd remember me," John said. I'm doing great. I've been trying to locate old friends from high school, and I started searching online using your maiden name. I found Annie Carson and Annie Woodman, and I thought this number might be you. Anyway, I found you." He laughed lightly.
"Well, I'm glad you did," Annie replied with a smile. "It's great to hear your voice."
"I see you're still living in St. Louis," John remarked.
"Yes, still here,"
Annie said, her voice tinged with something like regret. "Ah, Annie," John continued, "the real reason I called was to ask if you remember Michael Welker, from high school."
Annie slowly repeated the name. "Michael Welker,"
as if trying to recall, but deep down she knew. He was the reason for her daydreams. John continued, "Well, we met again back in 1990 during Desert Storm. We were both in the Army at the time. We went out for a beer one night, talked about the war, old friends, and high school, and your name came up. Michael talked about you most of the night. Has he ever contacted you?" Annie remained silent, her gaze drifting once more to the kitchen window. Her eyes shimmered. She stared at her victory garden in the backyard, the one she'd built for her mother, gone nearly 8 years now. "Well, Annie," John said gently, "he told me a long story about the two of you, and it's a beautiful story. I'd love to share it with you, if you have the time." Annie blinked, coming back to the moment.
"What? What's all this about?"
"I just wanted to tell you the story, and—"
"Wait, John," she interrupted. "I'm really busy right now. I've got someone at the front door. A former soldier in a wheelchair, maybe looking for a handout. Can I call you back later? Or maybe I can text you at this number?"
With a hint of disappointment, John replied, "Oh, okay. I don't do text, but I can give you my landline phone number and email. Do you have a pen and paper?"
"Sure," Annie said. "Let me grab some paper."
As the call ended, John sat for a moment, thinking about Annie's mention of the former soldier in a wheelchair. He shook his head and murmured to himself, "I guess it's just begun." Chapter 3. Request for Michael's Story. Approximately a month later, John sat in his office, sorting through bills and seated in front of his computer. Suddenly, he heard the familiar chime of an incoming email. He promptly set the bills aside and clicked on his email application, noticing Annie's name in his inbox. With a flicker of excitement, he whispered her name aloud and opened the message. The email began,
"Hi, John. I've tried to call, but your line was busy, so I thought I'd write you. I have a favor to ask. My granddaughter, Lauren, just turned 16 a few days ago, and at her birthday party, she asked me if there was ever a boy who fell in love with me. I said, of course there was, and she waited to know all the details. John, do you remember the story you were going to tell me about Michael Welker, the boy from school? You have a better way with words than I do, so if you have the time someday, would you mind writing her and telling her the story you were going to share with me? I've put her email below. Thanks, John. I'll owe you one. Annie."
John shook his head as he finished rereading the email. He stood up from his chair and wandered to the back of the house, gazing out the window at the serene pond filled with fish and the lush hillside he affectionately called his secret garden. Water cascaded gently down the hillside, feeding the pond below. Lost in thought, he mumbled to himself, "You want me to write a letter, a story, to your granddaughter? A story you've never even heard. Oh my God, where do I start? You don't even know what the story's about. How am I supposed to write this? Running his fingers through his hair, John stood quietly for a moment, deep in thought. Then an idea struck. He headed to the garage and opened a metal filing cabinet, retrieving a cardboard box filled with old cassette tapes. He sifted through the handwritten titles until he found the 3 he was looking for. With the tapes in hand, he grabbed an old cassette player and a pair of headphones. Returning to his study, he set everything down and plugged in the recorder. From the kitchen, he fetched a bottle of red wine and a glass, then settled back into his chair. He slipped on the headphones and pressed play. As the familiar voice played through the static-laced recording, John began to type. The clock on his desk read 6:57 a.m. He knew it would be a long day, and likely a long night. As the tape continued, he typed steadily, occasionally speaking his thoughts aloud, piecing the story together one memory at a time. Chapter 4. Who is John? Dear Lauren, my name is John Wilson, and I'm an old friend of your grandmother, Annie. She mentioned that you recently asked about her first boyfriend, the first boy she fell in love with. She asked me to write to you and share a story about a young man named Michael Welker. About a month ago, I received an email from one of Michael's friends informing me that Michael had been killed in Afghanistan. He was a good friend, and his passing breaks my heart. The 3 of us, Annie, Michael, and I, were close friends in high school until the Vietnam War intervened and we lost contact with each other. It wasn't until 1990, during Desert Storm, that Michael and I crossed paths again. During that reunion, he shared an astonishing story about your grandmother. To help you understand how I know this story, allow me to tell you a little bit about myself. Before Desert Storm, in 1991, I worked for a U.S. government agency. I was a well-paid operative traveling throughout Asian socialist countries, gathering information. As part of my work, I carried a recording device to document conversations for later analysis and for writing my after-action report. The story I'm about to tell you is one Michael shared with me in August 1990, when we met at a military facility in Tobyhanna, Pennsylvania. We decided to go out for a beer, reminisce about our lives, and reflect on our school days. I found his tale so captivating that I secretly recorded it. Chapter 5. Letter to Lauren. Note to Lauren. It's almost midnight, and I've just finished writing this story, and in a few minutes, I'll email it to you. But before I do, I want to tell you something. I have named this story My Sweet Yellow Rose, a title Michael Welker gave to your grandmother, reflecting the warm, radiant light she brought to his heart. This is not just a fleeting tale of young love or a passing romance. It is a profound testament, a love letter etched with steadfast devotion, shaped by the trials of a brutal war. This is a diary, a lasting tribute woven from the joys and sorrows of a soul forever touched by her presence, its pages holding memories that endure like roots in the Prometheus trees of Nevada. It tells of a girl, unaware of her quiet strength, who saved Michael's life and touched countless others, gently guiding the paths of those caught in life's hardships. To Michael, she was the essence of vitality, unwavering and luminous, her spirit shining with the vibrant beauty of a flower that carries her name, the yellow rose. From his earliest years, Michael yearned to pen heartfelt letters to your grandmother, a missive to mirror the way she had wholly captured his heart. He doubted his words could ever do her justice. Yet now, after all these years, perhaps through this story, he has finally woven the tribute she truly deserves. As I listened to Michael's audio tapes, I noticed how vividly he described Annie. Whenever he spoke of her, he vividly described her appearance, her attire, and even the subtle scent she carried, painting her essence with a meticulous care and devotion. His voice grew gentle as he reminisced about how her dress flowed gracefully over her figure, the crisp fabric catching the light with every confident, understated movement. He memorized everything about her. To Michael, she was far more than a memory. She was a vibrant, enduring flame, radiant and resolute. Her presence indelibly marked his soul. He confessed that he had never felt this way about anyone else and wanted to carry that image of her when they were apart so that he could bring her to mind whenever he wanted. I suppose what he was saying was, whenever he wanted to see her, all he had to do was close his eyes, and there she was in all her splendor. That boy was in love with her. From his youth, he'd dreamed of writing her love letters, ones that could hold the weight of his heart's longing until they saw each other again. But he always feared his words would fall apart. Now, through these audio tapes, when he speaks of her, his voice trembling with years of unspoken devotion, he was finally crafting that tribute, each description a brushstroke in the portrait of Annie, the woman he called his sweet yellow rose. This is the story of Michael and the enduring love he held for your grandmother. John.